Things are starting to heat up behind the scenes for the Los Angeles Lakers, and one name that just keeps coming up in the conversation is Austin Reeves. Whether you love him or think he's expendable, his future with the franchise is slowly becoming one of the most intriguing storylines heading into the new NBA season. There's a lot to break down here, and we need to look beyond just the stats or highlight reels. This situation is layered, and the more you dig into it, the more it starts to make sense why both fans and insiders are starting to ask, is it time to move on from Austin Reeves? Let's start with Houston, because that's where things get really interesting. The Rockets are in a tough spot right now. After investing heavily in Fred VanVleet to be their veteran playmaker and locker room leader, they're suddenly staring at the possibility of having no clear replacement for him if things go south. And with his injury situation, that's not just some wild hypothetical. Houston leaned hard into building a roster full of long, athletic wings. We're talking about a team stacked with two-way players, big bodies, and guys who can switch on defense, but they're thin when it comes to actual creators on the perimeter. That's where someone like Austin Reeves comes into the picture. Reeves isn't just a plug-and-play shooter. Sure, he can hit shots off the catch, but his real value lies in his ability to handle the ball, create off the dribble, and make plays for others. We've seen it in flashes, especially when LeBron James or other ball handlers were off the floor. He's smart, patient, and knows how to manipulate defenses. That's something Houston could use badly. With Fred VanVleet possibly out or just slowing down, and with the pressure trying to take the next step in the Western Conference, the Rockets might get desperate enough to make a move. And desperation leads to opportunity. From the Lakers' perspective, this is where it gets tricky. You've got a young player on a team-friendly deal. That's gold in the modern NBA. The first few years of Reeves' contract are ridiculously good value, and that's not lost on anyone. But that same low salary is what makes trading him so complicated. If you want to bring in a high-caliber piece in return, you're going to need to pair Reeves with someone else, maybe Rue, Hachimura, maybe another role player, just to match salary. That makes any potential deal a real balancing act. But here's why Houston makes sense as a trade partner. They've got young, athletic pieces on manageable contracts that could actually align with Reeves' current value. Players like Tari Eason or even someone like Jae'Sean Tate. These are guys who fit the Lakers' needs. Defensive versatility, energy, length, and maybe more importantly, they're gettable without completely blowing up your roster. Could a deal be structured where the Lakers send out Reeves and, in return, get back a package that includes a 3-and-D wing, a backup center like Clint Capella, or even a draft asset? It's possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. That's not to say the Lakers are eager to trade Reeves. There's no sign of that. But they're also realistic. They're heading into a season where the clock is ticking. LeBron James isn't getting younger. Anthony Davis is still elite, but his durability is always going to be a question mark. And then you've got the addition of Luka Doncic. If this version of the Lakers is going to contend, they need to find the right mix around their stars. The idea of keeping Reeves just because he's young and cheap doesn't hold up if the fit isn't right. And if he ends up being relegated to a role where he's just spotting up and launching threes, like we saw in last year's playoffs, then maybe it's time to ask some hard questions. During the postseason, Reeves' role became extremely limited. His three-point attempts shot up, with him averaging nearly 10 threes per game. That's not who he is. He can shoot it, sure, but he's at his best when he's got the ball in his hands, making reads, attacking defenders, getting into the paint. If the Lakers are leaning into a system that minimizes those strengths, whether because of Luka, LeBron, or other ball-dominant players, then you have to wonder if you're really maximizing what he brings to the table. And if the answer is no, then it makes even more sense to explore what kind of return you can get for him while his value is high. Another angle to consider is the potential long-term payoff. Let's say Houston starts to struggle out of the gate. Reed Shepherd doesn't quite live up to the early hype. VanVleet's injury becomes a lingering issue. Suddenly, the Rockets are staring down the barrel of another lost season. And that's when teams start getting aggressive. That's when calls get made, and names like Austin Reeves start getting tossed around. If the Lakers are patient and wait until closer to the trade deadline, they might find themselves in a position to capitalize on that kind of desperation. Think about it. Jabari Smith Jr. is making just over $12 million. That's a number that could theoretically be worked into a deal. Would Houston move him in a vacuum? Probably not. But add in the pressure of trying to salvage the season, and maybe they start looking at someone like Reeves as a long-term foundational piece. A young playmaker who can play on or off the ball, who could be molded into a lead guard or serve as a secondary option. That's valuable, especially when you're trying to build something sustainable. Now, not everyone agrees with the idea of trading Reeves. And that's fair. His fan base is passionate, to say the least. On one side, you've got people who treat him like the second coming, the ultimate underdog story, a guy who rose from undrafted to being a key contributor on one of the most storied franchises in the league. On the other side, you've got people who see his limitations and think the Lakers should cash in while they can. Somewhere in the middle is the truth. Reeves is a good player. Not great, not untouchable, but good. And good players on great contracts tend to have real trade value. That's why Houston is such a compelling partner. They have the pieces that actually match up with Reeves' current deal. Most teams don't. You're not getting a Jalen Suggs or Trey Murphy straight up for Austin Reeves. The money doesn't work. And if you're packaging multiple players just to get the salary to match, suddenly you're giving up more than you're getting. That's not how you build a contender. But with Houston, you could potentially grab a couple of guys who are a better fit stylistically and still have enough flexibility to make another move down the line. It all comes down to timing and evaluation. How does Austin Reeves look next to LeBron and Luka once the season starts? Is there enough ball to go around? Does he get pushed into a corner again and turn into a floor spacer? Or does he carve out a bigger role and force the Lakers to keep him no matter what? That's the big unknown. The regular season might give us some hints, but the playoffs will tell the real story. Because if he gets neutralized again when the lights are brightest, then what are we really doing here? Meanwhile, Houston is watching all of this too. They know what they need. And if they feel like Reeves could be the missing piece, the bridge between their current roster and the future they're trying to build, then maybe, just maybe, they're willing to part with someone like Jabari Smith, or maybe they throw in a guy like Tate to sweeten the deal. Maybe there's a first-round pick in play. Or maybe it's just the kind of win-win trade that gives both teams what they're looking for right now. There's no clear answer yet. That's what makes all of this so fascinating. But one thing is certain. If the Lakers do decide to trade Austin Reeves, they'll need to be strategic because they're not going to get many opportunities like this. And if Houston starts picking up the phone, you better believe Rob Pelinka will be listening. Another layer to all of this is the timing of contracts across the league, especially when it comes to recently signed players. A large chunk of the Rockets roster is made up of guys who just inked new deals, which means they won't even be eligible to be traded until December or January. That's not just a minor detail. That changes the whole trade window. If the Lakers are interested in making a move involving Houston's young core or key role players, they'll have to wait until deep into the season, likely right around the trade deadline. And that might actually play in their favor. By then, both teams will have a better understanding of where they stand, not just in the standings, but in terms of roster chemistry, injury issues, and playoff potential. The Lakers don't need to rush into anything. That's the beauty of where they're at. They're going into the season with a roster that has the potential to contend, but they also have enough flexibility and assets to pivot if things don't work out. That kind of balance is rare. Most teams are either all in or completely rebuilding. The Lakers are in this sweet spot where they can test the waters, see how the pieces fit, and then strike when the opportunity makes sense. And make no mistake, if Austin Reeves shows he can be more than just a secondary ball handler, if he levels up and becomes a consistent difference maker, then the Lakers might not trade him at all. They don't have to. But that's the thing, they need to know that now. Not in 2 years when his contract is up. This season is going to reveal a lot. And then there's the question of upside. A team like Houston might be willing to trade from their depth if they believe Reeves is not just a short-term fix, but someone they can build around. In the post-Fred VanVleet era, especially if VanVleet starts missing time or his production dips, Reeves could be positioned as the next face of their backcourt. He's younger, he's got a higher ceiling in terms of creation, and he plays with a chip on his shoulder that coaches love. Houston doesn't need another project. They've got plenty of those. What they need is a guy who can lead a unit, set the tone, and actually run an offense when things get chaotic. Reeves has that potential. He's shown it in spurts. The question is whether the Lakers believe in that upside enough to keep him around, or whether they'd rather cash out and plug more immediate holes in the roster. Let's not ignore how the fan base factors into this too. The Lakers fan base is one of the most passionate, most reactive in the league. And right now, it feels like there's a divide when it comes to Reeves. You've got people who think he's the next great Laker, and then there are others who think the hype has gone too far. That kind of split can put pressure on the front office. When one group is calling for a trade and the other is threatening to riot if it happens, you end up in this weird limbo where every decision gets second-guessed. But at the end of the day, this is business. If a deal makes the team better, now and in the future, it has to be considered, no matter how beloved a player might be. There's also the cold financial reality of what happens when Reeves' contract no longer becomes a bargain. Right now, he's one of the most valuable contracts in the league relative to production. But when that number goes up, and it will, you lose a lot of that advantage. Suddenly, you're paying him close to market value, or maybe even overpaying if he plateaus. That's the moment where decisions get complicated. Do you double down on a player whose value may have peaked? Or do you sell high while you still can? Those are the types of forward-thinking moves that separate good front offices from great ones. And for the Lakers, a team that's always expected to contend, there's no margin for error. Now imagine this scenario. The Rockets are floating in that frustrating middle ground by mid-season. Not bad enough to tank, not good enough to threaten. Fred VanVleet is playing limited minutes. Reed Shepherd hasn't quite found his rhythm, and their offense is sputtering. They're overloaded on wings, but nobody's initiating the offense with consistency. That's when a trade for someone like Reeves could suddenly make perfect sense. He doesn't need to come in and drop 20 every night. He just needs to stabilize things. Be the grown-up in the backcourt. That's a role he can thrive in, and if he's also locked into a contract for the next few seasons, that gives Houston a bit of security at a position they're clearly still trying to figure out. In that context, giving up someone like Tari Eason, or even including a lightly protected pick, might not be out of the question. Houston has assets, and if they see Reeves as a solution instead of a gamble, it wouldn't be surprising to see them go all in on a move that helps them now and stabilizes their future. Especially if they believe the Lakers don't really want to pay Reeves big money in a year or two, they might think they're getting a key piece for a reasonable price before his value jumps again. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on, whispers are spreading across the NBA landscape, and Los Angeles fans might want to sit down for this one. Sources close to team circles suggest that the Lakers could be adding a big man who might shift their interior game dramatically, Jonas Valanciunas. The Lithuanian center, known for his dominance in the paint and rebounding prowess, has been a reliable force wherever he's played, and the thought of him donning the purple and gold is already sending tremors through social media. Valanciunas, a veteran of more than a decade in the league, brings a blend of experience and physicality that the Lakers have long been seeking. Rumors indicate that discussions have been ongoing behind closed doors, with management quietly exploring options to bolster their frontcourt. The chatter is that the Lakers brass sees Valanciunas as the missing puzzle piece to complement their star-studded lineup. If true, his ability to anchor the paint, finish around the rim, and provide second-chance opportunities could be precisely what LeBron and Davis need to reclaim dominance in a highly competitive Western Conference. Fans have already begun imagining the potential matchups. Valanciunas setting screens for Anthony Davis, battling against the league's elite big men, and cleaning the glass with the authority he's displayed throughout his career. The buzz is not just about what he can do on the court, but also how his presence might change the Lakers' strategic approach. Inside sources hint at a deal that could see Valanciunas slotting into a starting role or providing key minutes off the bench, giving Coach Darvin Ham flexibility in rotations and matchups. Of course, nothing is official yet, and NBA insiders caution that trade talks can shift overnight. But the energy surrounding Los Angeles is palpable, with fans speculating whether this move could finally put the Lakers over the top in a season full of expectations. With the Lakers' history of bold moves, Adding a player of Valanciunas' caliber would certainly fit the narrative of a franchise unafraid to shake things up, whether it's a seamless integration or a story of adaptation and chemistry. One thing is clear. The NBA rumor mill is alive, and this particular whisper is one that could echo loudly through the Staples Center. As the speculation swirls, the basketball world is watching closely. Could Jonas Valanciunas really be the next big piece in Los Angeles' championship puzzle? If the rumors hold, Lakers fans might be in for one of the most intriguing roster shakeups of the year. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in the comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.